a police cruiser, a little white wedding, and is job creation. But even the smartest economists can't agree on what should be done to get people back to work. Richard Louie has the details on this, and I actually find this a little upsetting. There's a lot of disagreement, actually.
Oh, a lot of disagreement. It surprised you when you heard about these opinions here, Chris. A lot of big brains. 2 years after the Great Recession started, technically ended, and experts still do not agree on what we all still feel, a bad economy. On the big ideas, big disagreements, according to LA Times. First big idea, stimulus. $787 billion invested 18 months ago. John Cochran from the University of Chicago says, don't do it. Not again. It's not needed and it's not free, he says. Wait to see what's working first. But Joseph Stiglitz, Nobel Prize winner, says, hold on. The only solution is large government spending. He says we can't afford not to do it, but do it surgically. Next big idea, tax cuts. On one side, you got economist Brad Schiller who says, keep them. But speed is important here. So throw in some tax rebates of $300 to $600 as well per person. Alicia Manel from Boston College says, oh, no, you don't. Cut them for the upper and middle class. Then use that cash to create jobs. The last big idea, paring deficits. We got one corner. Keep the deficits. Keep on spending. It helped us avert a depression, says folks like economist Robert Pollin. But Moody's Mark Zandi says this deficit spooks us. Spending cuts and tax increases need to be hammered out by Congress to give confidence back. That's the third idea. Well, here's what soon-to-be Budget Committee Chair Paul Ryan said this morning on these subjects.
These ideas are obvious. Either we're going to do this on our own terms, meaning prevent preemptive debt crisis, get this fiscal house in order, do it on our own terms, and do it in the way we want to do at a time of our choosing where reforms are phased in, or it's going to be this painful, vigilante, austerity, Greek-like reforms where you're whacking benefits to current seniors, raising taxes on the economy. We have to choose.
Okay, that was on CNBC's Squawk Box this morning. And not easy choices, certainly, and while experts don't agree, that might be good here, Chris. Former Treasury Secretary John Snore says in Politico, the current trajectory is not working, that perhaps too much common thinking on the central bank level is not good.
All right, we've got a couple more people here we want to talk to about this. Thank you, Richard. Steve Moore back with us. Glenn Hubbard is the Dean of Columbia Business School. Dean Hubbard, let me start with you. All of this was laid out yesterday in a really terrific article in the Los Angeles Times, though I have to say that as I read it and reread it, it was pretty depressing. Look, smart people disagree all the time. Economists disagree. Is there some growing consensus, though, at all about what we need to do to get out of the financial situation we're in?
Well,
Chris, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think there is some consensus. First of all, the biggest place to start is to stop the policy uncertainty that we have in Washington. I think virtually everybody would agree on that. That ranges from taxes to health care to monetary policy. Second would be doing some things right. You know, extending tax cuts until we're ready to have a longer conversation, and to follow, as Paul Ryan was saying in your clip, outlining to the public what a long-term path toward fiscal sustainability is. If we do those things, I think we can make real progress.
Do you think, Steve, that people are ready to listen to this? And is the alternative to doing what the Dean just said, what was just quoted, these painful vigilante reforms, that it's going to be forced on us?
Well, Chris, there's not a whole lot of disagreement. You got the two smartest economists in the country right here, and Glenn and I agree. So I don't think there is a lot of disagreement.
So extend the tax cuts.
One of the things actually I find troubling about the whole debate about the economy is that, look, we can disagree about what might happen in the future, but we just had a 2-year experiment in Keynesian economics, the biggest Keynesian experiment in 60 years, where we spent this, $1 trillion. And I think anybody who looks at the objective evidence would have to say it was a failure. And yet you still have people say, well, let's even do more of this. I think what Glenn and I are saying is, why don't we do what worked in the 80s under Reagan, the last time we were in an economic ditch, cut tax rates. Glenn, I'd like to see a flat tax. Let's just fix the tax system once and for all, get the rate as low as possible, get rid of the deductions. I think that would be rocket fuel for this economy.
Yeah, the question, I guess, Dean, and you're an economist, you're not a politician, but if you have on one side economic theory and on the other side you have political reality, can the two meet and can something get done?
They can definitely get done, and we've seen this in the past. We saw this in the '86 Tax Act. We've seen this in budget deals. This is something I think the American people understand better than their political leaders. The country's on an unsustainable
fiscal path. Well, they have to balance their own budget.
We have to.
I mean, I'm saying the average American is saying, I've got to write my checks.
Exactly. And for the government, the question is not, do we need to do all of this afternoon and put the economy in a recession? Nobody's saying that. People are saying, let's put forth a sensible long-term path for policy that reduces government spending, keeps tax rates modest. We can do this. Paul Ryan outlined one very sensible path.
So, Steve, we're just about out of time, but what do you think the likelihood is that we're going to start on a path that leads us to some sort of better financial situation, even in this lame duck session? It does look like they're going to extend tax cuts, maybe for everybody unless you make $1 million or more.
Well, I think they need to extend them for everybody. But you know what? I was really encouraged, Chris. If you had asked me this question last week, I would probably said we're not going to get a consensus. But you know, that budget reduction commission that came forward with their recommendations last week, I didn't have high hopes for that. And I don't agree with everything they came out with, but there's a lot of really good ideas in that commission, bipartisan. I'd love to see Congress and the president rally behind that.
Well, let's see how it goes. I'd love to have both of you back. This has been a great discussion. Steve Moore, Dean Glenn Hubbard. By the way, we should say that the dean is the co-author of Seeds of Destruction. Thanks to both of you. It appears